that setup. This guy's like right out of, he's like straight on a movie set. Are you filming the Nathan Dos Santos biography, the biopic right now?
Yeah.
He's like there's like a makeup crew in the background and everything. This is awesome. I got to say, I already expected big things from you, but this setup, I'm really, this is some next level shit right here.
Into like gaming and photography and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah, because you got the logo on the chair and everything.
Oh yeah.
That's wild. So that's kind of some of the stuff that you're into. I mean, obviously, I'm going to ask you about that a little bit too.
For
that's
sure.
cool, man. No, this is. I've just been slumming it up to this point with these people on their cell phones, and it's just amateur hour over here. I'm on a mic there, So no, I appreciate it. Look, man, thank you for doing this.
Of course, thanks for having me on, man.
Oh my God, I've been a fan of yours for a very long time. So
thank you, appreciate it.
So yeah, let me just start off. I always start with a little bit of an intro here, okay?
Yep.
So you just sit back and relax here, and we'll just kick this off. All right, so guys, today I have my first elite world-class black belt on the show. I've just had some mediocre guys on to this point, so I've been trying to build up to the Nathan Dos Santoses of the world. But this is somebody that you've undoubtedly been following the sport, seen him on the podium everywhere. He's a world's medalist, Pans, Europeans, North Americans, represented Canada on the international stage, a BJJ Black Belt under Jorge Britto, an instructor at Toronto BJJ, one of the best gyms in the country. I had you on my top 10 list of most exciting no-gi guys. Or gi guys, I'm sorry, but you could be on either. It doesn't matter. If I could have doubled up, I would have put Nathan on both. I would say maybe that you're a mild-mannered assassin. Is that accurate? Do you think?
Yeah, that's fair to say. Yeah.
Okay.
George used to call me a silent killer, so I never talked or anything. So yeah.
Oh, that's so funny because I've never met you, but just I have like I'm a social worker, so I get kind of a vibe from people from a distance. So you struck me as that kind of guy. So I'm good. I'm on that. So you've competed against the likes of, I think, Dante Leon, Muhammad Ali in the open division. I described you in my video as kind of like a real Swiss Army knife. You just strike me as this guy that, you just seem to be able to do it all. So I'm super excited to have him here. Nathan Dos Santos is here. How you doing, Nathan?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on, Paul.
Yeah, of course. So many things I want to get into, but I guess, I've just been starting with everybody. I'm just wondering how you've made sense of all this madness in the world. I've seen Toronto BJJ reopen, but you're a guy that's an elite competitor. How has this impacted your life and your day-to-day routine, and how have you, stayed connected and even motivated to BJJ through all this?
Right. So I think at first when it happened, no one was really sure, but the goal is to compete and win these tournaments and try to, make a run at Worlds. And obviously that shifted. But luckily there's been a lot of underground training and a lot of people. Yeah.
Speakeasy jiu-jitsu basically is what it's become. Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, being able to train, is the number one priority for me. Yep. I don't think, I could always put the tournaments on the back seat and kind of, set my goals to something else. I'm watching more jiu-jitsu, studying more, trying to level up my game and work on different things. So I kind of see it as a blessing in disguise, just different things to work on and not so tunnel vision. I felt like just reflecting back, I was like, man, I was just one thing. And before you know it, a couple of years go by and you're you miss out on some things. So it's been good to take a step back, recover, and just start to, improve myself as a complete martial artist and not just a competitor. Yeah.
No, it's such a good perspective to have. And it's I've learned this lesson over the years with, it's funny. I blew out my ankle really badly about, a year and a half ago. And I was just so devastated. And yet looking back for me now, it was probably one of the best things to happen to me in a way.
Right.
As crazy as that sounds, because like you said, that you can explore different phases of training and your life. And yeah, I feel like I'm not nearly the competitor you are, but even when I get into that mode, everything else just takes a back seat. I really put up these blinders and I wasn't seeing my family as much. And,
right.
And it really takes you getting out of that. So do you feel like, talk to me a little bit about these different phases that you're going through. Like I feel like people think that you can only get better at jiu-jitsu necessarily by always being in the gym, which obviously is a huge cue, but do you get a lot out of video study, and how do you approach learning in this kind of new way when you were off the mat?
Right. I think like I definitely can watch, videos and improve on that. But I think like I still need to like watch something, digest it, and drill it with somebody. I think drilling is super important. I've had times where I've maybe watched like an hour or two instructional, and it's like right over my, I was like, wait a minute,
information overload, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, so you have to, I think you still have to manage that and take it in small pieces and then take it to drilling. But George always says this, like competition is, if jiu-jitsu is a book, competition is like a chapter.
Yeah.
Right? If you want to be a complete martial artist, and I think like, getting better at teaching, trying to take a step back and look like, how can I improve my classes? How can I like fine tune things that everyone will enjoy? And how can I work on, explaining things better? Not just like improving myself, but making my classes better is like something that I always look to do.
Yep.
And, just like you said too, like building, like you don't see your family, like now I can take a step back and work on my relationships and make sure I call my dad a little bit more and things like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But honestly, I'm kind of grateful for this time, like all these things that are happening. Like even with injuries, I've always looked at injuries as like a way to recover, let my body, reset. And I kind of take the same approach. Like I'll study and stuff. So even like students always ask like, oh, I'm injured, I'm out for a month. And I'm like, in the grand scheme of things, a month or 2 months.
Yeah, well, especially now, right? Like I'm sure for a lot of people training, they've probably never had, there's a lot of people that are lucky and never had a long break. And so you're going to run into it in one way or another. Nobody saw this coming, but it's if you want to get to black belt or whatever, however, it's like you're going to have to learn to deal with this. So it's probably for a lot of people an eye opener, but it sounds just like you have this great growth mindset, which is great, because I tend to think very black and white sometimes. I tend to get stuck in a mode sometimes where I'm like, okay, well, it's either good or it's bad. And you seem like you have this intelligent mindset of, okay, yeah, there's some negative here, but there's also a lot of positives that can come out of this. Yeah,
for sure. I think maybe that's just me. People can definitely, I have teammates and stuff where it's like, they're tunnel vision and sometimes it's hard to explain to them, like, man, you gotta relax. You gotta take a break a little bit. And it's actually gonna be better for you because you burn out too. We were all pretty burnt out, when we're preparing for tournaments. And that was like, especially when I was a little bit younger too, you can do the double days, the triple days and keep it going. But now it's starting to catch up. And I think I try to take a smarter route to approach, like a smarter approach to training, and make sure the double days and the triple days that aren't always going to make you better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I just watching a lot of your videos and your matches in the past, like I'm always curious because we all have a hard road in jiu-jitsu. I just feel like for me, it was never something that came naturally to me. And I've always had to be more of like the grinder. I just see you with such like this elite jiu-jitsu, and you just make incredibly difficult sequences look so easy at the highest level. Is this something that came kind of a little more naturally to you? That's not to say that you don't work hard, because you clearly do. I just mean, is it something you felt like you had an aptitude for early on? And what talk to me a bit about your road to sort of black belt.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Man, like I started karate actually at, like when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And I did that for 12 years. So I think just like the skills maybe didn't translate, but like coming up in martial arts as a kid, like the discipline. Yeah. And I think one thing that I really took from it is being able to like watch a technique and just have the body awareness to like replicate it.
Sure.
Which is very common in karate. You're just doing like, you're like really perfecting your forms and making sure everything is as perfect as possible. So, when I was around like 18, we had a jiu-jitsu instructor come to our karate school, and he was teaching once a week. And that's kind of how I got into it.
Okay.
And he would show us like, he was like a blue belt, but obviously he was like the god of the mats. He was beating the black belts in karate, you know, and no one could touch him.
They're like, does this guy even know what a kata is, for God's sakes?
Right,
Who is this guy?
Yeah, right.
Get out of here.
Yeah. But I really fell in love with like the grappling, and he actually trained with Josh, who's like the director of Toronto BJJ.
Okay. Yep.
So he's like, man, if you want to get good, like that's the best place to go. And so when I was 20, I started, and I've already seen jiu-jitsu before. So like even as a white belt, I felt like I understood like a little bit of grappling. Like
Sure.
I wasn't completely new.
Yeah, you didn't. This didn't come out of left field a little bit. You had a bit of an introduction before you just sort of jumped onto the mats.
Exactly. And even in karate coming up, we'd have like guys come do like jiu-jitsu seminars or judo seminars, and I would like, you know, we would dabble. We would
Sure.
definitely like, I've seen arm bars and close, so it wasn't completely new. So obviously that helped. But coming up through the belts, I think my biggest problem is I was trying to be too fancy. Like I saw the Mendez bros and I saw like,
oh yeah, 100%. I know
Right?
exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
So I remember being a blue belt and just drilling berimbolo forever.
Yep.
And George would be like, "Man, you're too fancy, bro. You gotta
Really?
fight."
Oh, that's
Yeah,
so
you gotta-
crazy. Okay, yeah, that's hilarious.
So he kind of woke up that spirit in me to like fight harder, and I think that really, like, when things connected was actually I went to Worlds as a blue belt, and I wasn't supposed to go. Actually, Josh sponsored a couple people, and Thomas Beach at the time was like our number one competitor at Toronto BJJ. He's unreal.
Oh yeah.
And he got injured and he couldn't go. So I ended up like taking his spot. Like Josh would still send one more guy. So I got to go.
Okay.
And I did like 6 matches. I lost in the quarterfinals in like a super close match. And after that, I really like said like, man, I can do this. Like I kind of belong
that
here,
is
right?
no, like, for people that aren't as familiar, that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. Like
it was crazy. Yeah.
I think the piece that I think people don't understand is that like everybody just associates like, you know, oh, it's a blue belt to this, but it's like at that level, man, the blue belts you could take a world-class blue belt and they're going to whoop so many they're going to kill them. So it's like, even at that level, it is so difficult to do. You could be a black belt and go in and probably people wouldn't, you know what I mean? So I don't think people appreciate the level, but that's an impressive, that's especially for a guy that's like, I don't even know if I could do this yet. You just go out there and have that run.
Yeah. Like I was doing well. I think I lost the Ontario Open, so I was like, I'm not going to do Worlds and whatever. I got the spot, and like the day was a blur. I honestly barely remember any of the matches. It was just like one, and then like an hour break. One was like 15-minute break, and it was just like all over the place. But after that day, I thought like, man, I can do this. And like George saw like, yeah, this kid's good, and I, you know, I got a lot of confidence from that tournament, even though I lost.
Did you hit a berimbolo on anybody?
I think so. Honestly, yeah.
George is just throwing a clipboard at you. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Get out of here.
Exactly. But yeah, coming through the belts, like then I started to like grow into when I got my purple belt, I did well locally. I got bronze at Worlds. I lost to Hudson Mateus in the semis.
Okay, that's
when I was like, I can hang with these guys and like I belong up here. And then, you know, brown belt, a few injuries, but and I think black belt I did better than brown belt. I've been facing better guys and doing well.
That's incredible. Now, so how long did it take you to go from white to black belt?
8 years.
Oh my God. That's pretty impressive. Again, I mean, anybody that's in the sport knows. I mean, especially as a competitor, you know, we see people in the sport that are, you know, they're more casual, and it's like, you know, sometimes they move along, but it's for at that level, that's incredibly difficult. And it's really interesting what you say too, because, you know, I refer to my own experience, and it's completely different levels in a lot of ways, but just this idea of like these little seeds that get planted, right? Mm-hmm. Like you're this guy that I would look at you and think, you know what, this guy probably had the confidence from the beginning and he's just out there killing people. But
no way.
I always say that like people either think you go to a tournament and it's you win or you lose, and there's nothing in between. But sometimes it's these little moments where it's just, even if you didn't get to where you wanted to, maybe you didn't make the podium, but it's this little seed of like, oh shit, I can kind of hang here, like
exactly.
And it's just those little moments that are so critical, right? It's not necessarily the gold medal or the big championship, but it's these little realizations along the way that like, I can actually do this. And I don't think people realize or appreciate how big those are. because I don't think confidence for a lot of people just is overnight. It's a bit of a snowball effect. Would you agree with that?
100%. I like another little moment that comes to mind is like I was working a full-time job when I was a blue belt, and eventually someone from the teens class left, and a spot opened up to teach at Toronto BJJ. And Josh is like, I was volunteering with Josh teaching jiu-jitsu at a high school program. And he's like, hey, like we got a spot, like 3 classes a week. It's not much money. It's 3 classes a week.
Yeah.
But that was like a pivotal moment for me because I ended up quitting my job and teaching at Toronto BJJ and training full time. And this was about like 4 years in. And it was crazy. Like my parents were like, what are you doing? Like, why would you, I was working like an office job and I kind of, I left because like that's truly what I wanted to do. And because of jiu-jitsu, like so many opportunities have opened for me, like, you know, teaching, working at the gym, like finding new projects. I'm super into like, you know, doing the social media stuff with like, I love editing videos and a little bit artistic, you know, just like you're doing pretty much the same, like with the technique stuff. And it's like, you can be creative. And I just kind of found these different paths because of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Well, it's almost like we talk about in a way, like injuries can bring about positive things. It's like, who would have thought that, you know, your parents would have thought he's leaving his job? What is this guy doing? But it's it's almost these little leaps of faith in a way, right? Yeah. Like sometimes you have to be willing to look silly to yourself or to other people, and I think it takes a lot of guts to be able to do that. So so what were you actually doing? What was this job like? Are you teaching full time? Like is jiu-jitsu your whole life right now? And so what were you doing at that job before that time?
At that job, I was working at a gaming company. It was owned by Virgin, like Virgin Mobile.
Yep.
It was called Virgin Gaming. Funny enough, people always make fun of that. But now it's called, I think it's World Gaming. But anyway, it was like a video game company where people play like tournaments online, and there was like money involved and stuff like that. And I got into it just because I've always been into gaming, and I was always in the scene. Like I used to like compete in like this video game called Halo. You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never been to it. I still have. I think I have like an Xbox 360, and I'm still playing NBA 2K16 or something. That's me. Right. It's like I went to buy another controller at Walmart, and I said, "Oh, do you have any Xbox 360?" And he looked at me like I was 100 years old. He's like, "Yeah, we have some, but you know another one's out." I'm like, dude, I'm 42. Get out of my face, all right? Just be lucky I'm still playing.
Yeah. I've always been into gaming, and I still like play. It's something I do in my downtime. And I just like, people are always surprised, like, oh, you're super nerdy. And like, I am. I'm really, I think
super
like.
Super nerdy. I mean, it's a big thing. It's a huge thing, right? People are playing.
Yeah. And I don't know. I think it helps me be a little more like analytical when it comes to jiu-jitsu. I kind of use those things and I can break things down to like a smaller level. And I don't know. It's just like I geek out with video games or like art or like, you know, photography or something. I go deep into jiu-jitsu as well. So I don't know. I think it helps me in the long run.
No, it's funny. Some of the like people seem to think that like people become very technical and analytical in jiu-jitsu, and it's like that's the only thing. To me, the way that you are in jiu-jitsu is more of a reflection of how you are as a person and how your brain works. Like some of the best people that I know, they have that attention for detail and that ability to break things down. And it doesn't really matter what they're doing. Like I reference a friend of mine that I trained with, Matt McDonald, right? I remember like Matt, I played guitar. I was a musician full time for about 5-6 years.
Yep.
And Matt would always want to jam, but even the way he was playing, the stuff that he was drawn to, you know, most people are banging out basic chords, but Matt was playing these intricate, you know, off timing stuff that was really very difficult. But that's the way he sees jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah.
You know, he was a good golfer, and the way he breaks down a golf swing. So it doesn't surprise me to hear that, because I wouldn't be shocked that that's probably what you do. You're also creative, right? So you're an analytical artist in a way, and but that's what shows up in your jiu-jitsu game, right? You know what I mean? I do think that comes out very prominently, you know? So
yeah, I agree with that. It's true.
Have you had a lot of setbacks? Like, I just wonder if have you had a lot of injuries along the way, or have there been moments where you thought, man, this might be it, or things that have kind of derailed you that sort of changed things big time for you?
Right. Well, definitely injuries. Like the worst thing that ever happened to me was in Portugal, Europeans. I got ankle locked.
Okay.
Like just straight ankle locked at, I think it was brown belt. And I actually escaped at one point, but then he put the same ankle lock on, and everything popped like up to my shin.
Oh,
And people were
God.
just like, oh, and the worst thing was I had to stay like 2 more days, and then I flew back and it just
Oh,
like blew
no. I
up.
was just going to say on the plane, it probably exploded, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then I had to wait for the swelling to go down to get any imaging. And then
Yeah.
I finally got an MRI, and I remember the doctor's like, "How did this happen? Were you like skateboarding or something?" I'm like, "No, someone grabbed my ankle. Someone grabbed my ankle and like ripped it off."
He's like,
And
oh, all right. This is
he's
what
like,
we're.
He's like, "You let someone do this to you?" Like, what? He was like, "What the hell's going on?"
Yeah. What kind of a sadist are you? Yeah.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But it wasn't just the tendons. I actually fractured one of my like the outside bone on my ankle.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
Which is crazy from a straight, like it wasn't even a toe hold, which usually like people you would imagine that would be more damaging,
Yep.
but it was a straight ankle lock and it was crazy strong. That was probably the worst injury. I was out for like I still had pain. I couldn't do De La Hiva for like 8 months or something
Yeah.
crazy,
Oh, yeah.
right?
Yeah. I
So I had to
totally
change my
understand.
game. I changed it up and I got better at other things.
So, okay. So, if before this injury, was that a big weapon for you, your De La Hiva game?
Yeah, like just like left side, like standard De La
Yeah.
Hiva, setting up like knockdown Berimbolo stuff was like pretty much my go-to from open
Hang on,
guard.
I'm writing this down. I need to make.
Yeah, yeah.
I need to. People are gonna pay good money for me to have the. Where is he strongest? Where is he weakest?
Right, yeah.
I'm selling this. I'm gonna be selling this online after. No, but so okay. So that must have been a big transition for you. So what?
Yep.
What did you then become better at because of this injury? Like, where did you move? What direction?
Something that always like I always was a guard player. I would still consider myself like stronger on the bottom,
Yep.
but passing, like literally, I was
Yeah.
just like,
Okay.
I'm only gonna pass. I'm gonna try to do like more dynamic stuff and try to combine pressure with the outside passing.
Right.
And I think like just adding that combination and really focusing on it because before like I try to have intention when I roll. Like I try to
Yep.
do things that I want to work on. But when I couldn't like play De La Hiva, I just thought like I can drop my weight on people, fight with like head and like dropping my head and shoulders, and I think I got better at a whole different aspect of my game because of the injury. So
Well, it's just I feel like in this day and age too, there's just so many ways you can go with your game that
yep,
it almost sometimes takes somebody to say, "Okay, that's off the table," right?
yes,
Because
yes,
there's
yeah,
literally like I don't believe you can stay super sharp at it all. It's just it seems like it's an impossible thing unless you're like
yeah,
because there's just so many between gi, no gi, leg locks, passing, deli, like it just
of
seems
course,
incredibly deep now, and so it's
yeah,
really interesting to hear you say that. Yeah, I talk to people a lot about that. It's going into this idea of rolling with intention, right? Like I
hmm
spent so many years where I would just kind of like, all right, let's just roll and see what happens.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and you will, I mean, obviously doing it you will get better, but it's
yes,
this idea of having like specific goals that go in and
right,
it's such a little thing, but I don't think enough people do that. Is that what
yeah.
you see, I guess, in people that you're teaching? Do you see a lot of people kind of making that mistake?
Yeah, we see that all the time, but one good training like methodology that George uses, we call specific training.
Okay. Yep.
So I'm sure a lot of gyms do this. Like you learn the technique,
Yep.
maybe you learn a couple variations, but then you put yourself in that position and you sort of like roll from there.
Yeah.
But George will give you a goal. Like if you're working closed guard and the guy on bottom sweeps or submits, it's a reset.
Yeah, to the same position, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that training has been like, even for our competition training, like a lot of the times, if I'm rolling with like, Mike Sheehan, we might not ever end up in this position where I have his back or like something, in such a dominant spot.
Exactly.
So he works his defense. I work my attacks in positions that we might not get there in a regular roll. And I think that's like one of the best ways to get better as opposed to just free rolling all the time.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that because
Hmm.
you're right. It's one thing to go like I've tried this before too. Like especially in a competitive room, right? You're like, okay, I'm gonna try to work on this, but it's like when somebody's pushing you, you can't just necessarily pick and choose, and you might if you're lucky get one look at it in an entire
Right,
round,
right.
and it's
Yeah.
like then you're almost afraid to try because you know that if you screw up, you're going to be in a really bad position.
Of course.
So
of course.
it's kind of this like double-edged sword, and
Yeah.
I even watch guys at high level, right? Like I've kind of gotten into the leg lock thing and the no-gi
Yep.
thing. And I see guys that are super high level and I don't there's a lot of times with like heel hook stuff where I don't think they voluntarily go there enough because they train and nobody can put them there because they're
Right.
probably the best guy in the room. And so
Yep.
it takes getting to ADCC or maybe it's a Gordon Ryan character that can put them there, and they're kind of lost because
it's too late.
It's too late, right? Whereas you're saying, take sort of the pressure out of the role and say, this is an exercise in getting better. And of course, you can still be competitive, but when there's failure, you get to go right back to the beginning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like the tough thing is, like, at Toronto BJJ, we'll have like Matt McDonald, or like some of my best training partners, like Andre Grambois.
Yeah. All these
Mike
beasts.
Sheehan.
Yeah.
Everyone just comes in, and you're like, maybe you don't know they're coming in that day, and you're just like, all right, I'm gonna work on this. And they come in, you're like, oh, and you just default back to your.
I guess I'm not gonna work on this today.
No,
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So, they've been like Andre, Dynas. We have a lot of good people that are like part of the team, and they'll come in on different days. So it always keeps you on your toes, especially when you're, at Toronto BJJ, you got to be ready.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, there's this idea that, like, you kind of have to build up a technique before it's going to work on, Andre.
Yeah.
Like, you have to get some reps in with people that are a little bit or like you said, you have to get that opportunity to keep looking at it over and over. Because I find like I've been trying to work on a little bit of a new passing style, and the problem is that I see it and I drill it, but when it's live, I still freeze too much. Like I'm still like pausing too much.
Yeah,
and that can be fine against an earlier person, but if I don't get the reps in, I do it against a better person. It's too late. I've missed it, and then I'm on bottom side control or whatever, and the rest of the round is me trying to get out. That you raise a good point. I was going to actually ask you about sort of the way you run classes, because there's so many different styles. I've been to so many different gyms and what they focus on. And how would you say, this is just, but what do you think is kind of like the ideal amount of I guess, are your classes an hour and a half? Is that how you tend to do them?
They're all hour blocks, but usually, the first hour would be like a drilling or technique class.
Okay.
And most of the time they're followed by an hour of rolling. So most people stay for both.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I'm always curious to get people's opinion like you. You're such a skilled competitor and instructor. I just wonder how much you try to break up into free sparring versus, positional work, like you were saying, versus, hard rolling and flow rolling. Like, where do you stand on all those elements in a class?
Sure. I think like there's a little bit of a difference, especially at Toronto BJJ. We have a white belt only class.
Okay. Yep.
So the only difference there is they're going to focus warming up with like jiu-jitsu specific movements, and then they're going to do the technique pretty much like normal, but we have a curriculum of like the techniques that we believe like a white belt should know, and that just cycles through in the white belt program.
Okay. Yep.
And they might end up with, they'll do more specific training for sure. We always think it's better for them to get that live rolling, but in a specific scenario. Like, we can kind of control injuries and like the spazzy white belt guys and stuff like that.
Oh, for
sure. So that goes a long way with like just like making sure everyone, gets a good workout, they understand the technique, and they get to practice a little bit. And maybe we'll let them do like a 5-minute roll at the end of class.
Okay.
And that just, we found like works better for building up a solid white belt.
Yeah.
But then the blue belt class, it becomes way more open. Like, you can do a technique class, for example, which usually might end with one roll, and then you can go home. But like I said earlier, most people stay for that second hour. So I would say like for somebody coming up, like as a blue belt, for example, try to split it half and half, maybe a little more technique. Like if you're coming like 4 days a week, maybe 2 of those are just like, if you come for 1 hour, drill that technique and try to do like a specific round.
Right.
But if you come like the other 2 days, try to get that hour of rolling. And we really push like our rolling class, try to pace yourself and make it through the whole thing. Because if you're doing like one sit out, then you're wasting your time really, unless you absolutely need to rest. Try to make it through that 1 hour and try to pace yourself and not gas out and go too crazy. That's like general like training to improve. I would say like if you're not worrying about tournaments or anything like that, you should just like pretty much split it half and half. Drilling. With drilling, I always couple specific with it, like that specific training.
Yep. You
have to put into practice and try to at least do a couple rounds of that. I think just drilling the technique is good. There's a time for that, but if you can do the specific, it'll like I think you'll understand it a little bit more.
I think it drives it home more because it makes it more real, right? It gives you more honest reactions. When you're drilling, people are giving it to you, and so it's like when you make it a little more of a live situation, I do find you get more out of it. And it's that repetition factor too. Like, and it's eliminating the kind of I think we all sometimes, get into this kind of I got to win the round mode. You know what I mean? Which is, that, there's benefit to that. Like, that's if you're training for competition, but when you're trying to improve, that can be the enemy, right? Like I've said for a long time, that has held me back sometimes because you kind of want to, okay, I won the round, but you may end up just using the same tools that you've always used because that's what wins against this person or that person.
Exactly.
But in 6 months or a year from now, are you going to be the exact same person? You know what I mean?
Right,
and so having that, eliminating that kind of like, oh, I got to win the round versus let's just try to win this position, quote unquote, or get better at this position. I think makes a big difference for a lot of people.
Yeah. And then of course, if you're preparing for a tournament, those hard days, it varies, but you need to make sure like they're staggered. I wouldn't do like 2 hard days back to back.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I try not to anyways. Like, of course, especially if like it's kind of tough at Toronto BJJ because like a visitor will come in. We have a lot of visitors being like in the city.
Yeah, absolutely.
So like, we show up. Like if Andre comes on Wednesday and I did a hard training Tuesday, I'm not going to be like, hey man, I went hard yesterday. I can't do it.
Yeah. Sorry, bro.
No. Yeah.
Sorry, bro. Yeah.
So we're going to go. And I think that's important too. Like you got to build up some sort of, I think like it's good to overtrain a little bit sometimes. You need to feel that. You need to feel your limits.
Yeah.
You're not going to do that for years and years and months, but of course you got to push yourself to that point where you wake up and you feel like you got hit by a truck and you're like, I can't move today. I think that you got to feel that at least, a little bit. But if you're training for a tournament, I think like be more like have the intention when you roll and work your A game.
Yes.
Now's not the time to to experiment. It's like, I'm going to be first. I'm going to implement my game. I'm going to set the match, tempo. Keenan always uses this term. And if you can just put it on your opponent, then you'll probably win. Even if you're worse, if you're like working your A game and they're always defending, you can win the match. So I think like if you're preparing for a tournament, you have to shift your mindset a little bit and work on your game plan. And that's how you sort of progress as a complete, athlete or jiu-jitsu practitioner.
It's cool to hear you say that just because I kept saying to people like I haven't been like this consistent competitor, but in 2019 I had the best run of my life, and I started working with Rory McDonald. I was doing more no-gi, but you realize you have these epiphanies where it's like, okay, when I'm getting ready for a tournament, it's like I always say, like you gotta shrink your game down in a lot of ways. Like I can't go out there and be like, okay, here are 50 techniques that I'm gonna. It's like you said, especially the idea of like I gotta win the first exchange and I've gotta be the guy setting the tempo. And I've seen students that have gone out, and I yelled at this guy one time because he was literally on his phone looking at a technique on Instagram as he was about to go to the mat, and I nearly like I was yelling at him during the mat. I was like, I'm gonna fucking kill you if you lose this position, because he's trying these techniques. I love the guy; he's the best. But it highlights this kind of like there are it's I guess it would be almost like weightlifting or bodybuilding. It's like there's growth phases where you're trying to bulk up and grow, and then there's cutting phases where you're like, okay, now we're really going to sculpt our game and take our best, sharpest tools, because your goal is to win there. It's not you go to tournaments to grow in other ways, but it's not the time to be like, I just saw Nathan hit this crazy truck roll. I'm gonna try that. So I think that's an awesome point. And the other piece that you said that's really interesting is this idea of being weary of overtraining. Mm-hmm. I hear people in the fitness world where they're like, overtraining is bullshit and it's this and that. And it's like, in a sport like jiu-jitsu, it's a real thing, you have natural like limits. And the mistake I've made is sometimes I'm a bit OCD, and I get to a point where I'm like, it wasn't a good training session unless I beat the hell out of myself. Right. And there's, like you said, there's a time and a place for that, but that can be so detrimental because I was getting depressed. I couldn't sleep. My appetite sucked. I was getting injured. And like you said, it's this you have to have this intellectual approach to training. It has to be periodized.
Right.
So tell me, like, what does it look like for you leading up to a tournament? I mean, how do you determine how many hard days and quote unquote easier days? Do you have a set schedule, or do you go by feel, or how do you approach that?
Yeah, for the most part, it's set. Like all of us as a team, sort of like with George, our coach, and with the competitors, we kind of set out our week. With our competition trainings, are like most of the time they're separate from regular classes,
right? So
we don't have to go in and like whatever bump into other groups like too crazy. We have like a separate time for that, which helps.
Yep.
But if you're feeling like I absolutely cannot do this comp training, it's totally fine to bow out. I know some of the, like, I'm 30 now, so I'm starting to I start to take like a smarter approach, whereas like Sheehan, who's like 24, or like Eric Fan, they're small. They can just go and they'll push through it.
Yeah.
And I've had that phase, and I think now for me personally is like some days I'll take a step back and maybe I'll just come in and watch the guys or whatever. But I know a lot of the younger guys, it gets in their head like, I'm getting worse, I'm not getting better. They lose a roll on maybe the end of the week, and it really gets to them. But usually our week is like, Monday will be like more drilling and like free rolling with the class. Right. But then Tuesday and Thursday will be like those hard competition style trainings in the morning. And then those comp trainings, we also drill before, and then we do all our hard rounds and more specific training. We actually don't do too much free rolling in our comp training classes.
Okay.
Maybe do one at the end. And then we'll come back at night and roll on those Tuesdays and Thursdays with the class and do George's drilling class. And then the kind of in betweens, like the Wednesday, the Friday, will be a little bit more like same thing, coming in with the class, doing like George's technique class, and then rolling.
Right.
But you have that's the hard part, is coming to class and being disciplined, because there are other students who are good, but maybe they just have a full-time job and they could actually be in the comp training, and they want to roll with you. So you got to be disciplined in those classes. And that's been like the hardest part for all of us, is just trying to stay disciplined and make sure the focus is on our comp training.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the weekend is kind of up to you. Like George doesn't teach on Saturday or Sunday.
Okay.
So we kind of decide, like, most of the time on Saturdays, I'll just teach like the kids in the morning and all my classes. And I take Sunday off completely. Okay. But I'm like,
is that when your Sundays are your day for practicing your kata? That's when that's when you go
gaming kata.
You got to stay sharp. You got to keep those sharp just in case.
Yeah. I try to do nothing. I don't even try to think about jiu-jitsu at all.
Yeah.
And same thing, like before a tournament, the day before a tournament, I try not, like you were saying, I definitely don't watch matches or do anything like that. I try to like relax. Like if I'm at Worlds, like California's usually nice weather, like I'll walk around and just hang out. I don't like to be too much jiu-jitsu like right before a tournament or something important.
Right. Well, I've in the past with certain tournaments, sometimes I've, done a lot of research on my opponents and that sort of thing. And that sort of thing can be a real double-edged sword, because I competed at the Nogi Worlds and did well, and it worked to a degree, and then it backfired on me, because the first two guys I had a good read on and kind of played out. And then the last guy I lost because he totally played a game that I wasn't prepared for. So I was just behind the eight ball the whole time. So you got to be careful. And sometimes people can just fire themselves up way too much, right? Like you can, do you experience that? I feel like people look at their opponent and they can make them out to be this monster, because in this day of like YouTube and Instagram, people are always just clipping the highlights of what they're like.
Of course, I do it all the time. Yeah.
No, you do, but but that's your whole. I mean, that's just a normal day for you. But I mean, even a guy like, I even saw a guy there that I'd seen online, and I was like, holy shit, this guy's awesome. But he was just actually quite mediocre. But of course, he puts together these highlight packages where you're like. And so, like, I went there and I psyched myself up for nothing, Yes. So, do you encourage people to kind of not do that? Do you advise people that not look at your opponent, or do you feel like there's value in that?
Yeah, I think it varies from person to person. Like, definitely one thing I used to do is research the guy, but you can't build this person up in your head, like you said, to be like some monster. You cannot do that. You need to look at them and be like, he's a human just like me. Like, he trains like just as hard, whatever. I can beat him, and when I face these, like now a black belt, I start to face these good guys. I think of it like that. Like you can't, even though I've seen them all over the place and whatever on Flow Grappling, you just got to take it like he's just another guy, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to compete against him.
No, absolutely.
Some people like to look up, and it gives them comfort, and it kind of gives them a game plan. If that works for them, then maybe I would say do it, but you definitely don't build them up to be something bigger than they are.
Yeah, which is really easy to do, right?
Of course. Like even if those thoughts come into my head, you just got to be able to push them out. You got to fight that inner voice, and that's like a skill you need to have, is be able to beat yourself in that inner conversation and just always come out on top.
Well, it's interesting that the thing that I would say that you've brought up some cool points is just this idea of discipline. I used to think of discipline as always just like in the training room, push, hard,
right.
go. But like discipline can be more passive too, right? Like discipline can be, okay, I got frustrated last night, but I know I shouldn't do another 3 rounds here. But I'm going to do them anyway because, right? So like actually discipline can be taking your foot off the gas pedal and not pushing, and it can be
100%.
Off the mat saying, I'm not going to watch the video of this guy over and over and over again. And I've struggled with that. Like those are elements that you're like, oh, okay, I'm good at this type of discipline, but not so good at this, right? Like I'm always on point with what I'm eating and that sort of thing. But sometimes you fall into these other traps. Which is discipline too, right?
Yes, 100%. And like I don't think it's a bad thing to go in and just be like, I still think you should have a game plan.
Yeah.
Some people are so good that they can just be like, I'm going to do whatever happens. Like if this guy
I'm just going to see what happens. Exactly.
And some people can do that. Like I'm not saying it's wrong, but I think like if you're just like an average person and you're trying to get better at competition for whatever reason, I think you should just put all like as many things on your side as you can and just, be disciplined with it, but have a game plan and don't think too deep about your opponent. Just worry about getting better yourself.
Yeah, it's so cheesy. You hear everybody say it on this. Be first. It's like the cheesiest thing ever. But is there anything more like you got be first? Like go out there and get.
Yes.
The piece that I started to really understand is this idea of you like in whatever how long your match is 7, 8, 10 minutes 10 minutes
10.
Oh God, jeez, God bless you guys. For the old guys, it's like 3 minutes because we're on oxygen tanks after like we're like we're just gasping for air. But yeah, it's this idea of like being disciplined, stick to a game plan. Because I used to go in and I'd be like, I'm gonna see what happens, and I'd lock up with someone or get my grips and be like, oh, they're strong, and immediately I started going downhill, right? Now I've gotten more into wrestling and takedowns, and I had so much success because I literally was like, I know what I want to do, and I'm not going to accept anything other than that. Like, if it doesn't go my way, like, let's say I don't get the takedown or whatever it is, but just being that, like, bull a little bit more, right? Instead of being so passive. Because, like, I mean, most of the time, the guy that that wins the first exchange and scores the first couple, 2-3 points, the odds suddenly shift in their favor dramatically. It's not impossible to win, but the odds change so dramatically, what's really interesting is we're talking about competition. I love this picture. I made a title slide of you, and I think it's in Toronto, and it's you with the double gold, and it just says "Dream Big" in the background. It's such an awesome picture. I just wonder, like, is that how you see yourself? Like, did you have these big visions of you being able to win at these high levels? And do you consider yourself a natural competitor? Like, is that something that has come easy to you, or do you get a lot of anxiety?
Yeah, I think, man, this as funny as it sounds, like just competing and gaming a lot. I get the same like adrenaline.
That's interesting. Okay, cool.
When I compete, like, even if I was like gonna play someone in air hockey, I get a little bit of adrenaline, like.
Well, because you're competitive,
exactly, and I'm like, oh, I gotta win this. Yeah, so I think like I just love being competitive. I still get nervous. Like, don't get me wrong, I feel the nerves. But I just think I'm good at dealing with it.
Okay.
Like that inner voice, number one, always comes up, and you have to suppress it or maybe allow it in, but understand that like it's wrong. So I'm not like, no, don't think these thoughts, but I definitely get them like, oh shit, like I don't feel too good today. Like I don't feel like 100%. I'm not going to fight too well in this match. It's like, you got to be able to like, no, I feel good. Like I'm ready. It is what it is.
Yep.
But also like, I definitely gotten better at competing. Like even as a white belt and a blue belt, the nerves got to me. I've had matches where like my forearms were completely obliterated.
God. Yeah, that's the worst feeling ever.
And I'm just like, my lips are like blue for some reason. Like there's no blood flow to my head.
No oxygen going to your brain. Yeah. So like, it's all in your forearms, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So I've definitely had that, and you're gonna experience that. It's like very rare for someone to just be like, no, I was good. I'm still trying to achieve that like feeling like I do in the training room at the tournament. And that just comes with like competing a lot, really.
Right.
Of course, now I can't do it. So probably most people are going to be rusty, but you can practice it in different ways. Like our comp training, I'll psych myself up. Like I'm about to do a tournament against these guys.
Yes. Yep.
And I get nervous for comp training sometimes. And I use that as if like I'm in a tournament. So it's not a new experience when I'm stepping on the mats at a big tournament. Exactly. I felt this like, 3 times a week or whatever. And you can sort of, visualize the tournament when you're on your training mats, which is tough because you get so comfortable in your academy, right?
Exactly. And the thing that's hard too is you kind of know what to expect. You sort of like, I'm sure you guys have crazy roles, but they tend to follow, there's a roadmap of how it goes. So it's there isn't quite the unknown. I know how strong he is. I know what his conditioning's like. I know this, I know that. So it's different that way, but yeah.
Yeah. You just got to visualize it. I like to visualize like for Worlds, I'll watch matches and I picture myself like walking onto those mats. Like I'm going to be standing right there and they're going to call me up and I'm going to run on, I'm going to shake the ref's hand. I like to go through that just so it feels like, again, it doesn't feel like a new experience. Right. I've been there before.
Yep.
And that really helps me.
It's such a not funny, but a good piece that you talked about. Like I sort of did a video about like people dealing with anxiety before competition. And the one piece that helped me was, mimicking tournament conditions as much as possible in your training.
Yes.
Like there was one day Rory we did a mock tournament. We had he'd do like 3 matches and it would like, you'd have to wait between them and like,
perfect. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And even though they're similar people, there's something at stake. People are watching, you get anxious and it's like, I made the mistake in the past of I just do like normal classes and then I go to the tournament. And it was just the intensity's different, the pace is different. A lot of times we would do our rounds at the end of the class when we were so tired and sweaty already.
Right.
But I find in tournaments you're more pumped up. It's more dynamic, it's more explosive. So I would try to do my rounds with a warm up, of course, but more fresh, because that's what it was going to be like in the tournament. I wasn't going to have an hour and a half of sweating to get ready.
Right.
So that's really interesting. And I do think that competition is a skill, right?
Yep.
Like you could be
100%.
the best. I mean, we all know people that are probably in the training room a savage, but then under the lights, they're different because it's a different skill set in a way, right? The mental piece and all that kind of stuff. Would you agree with that?
We have guys like that who are unreal and they just like,
name the names, Nathan. Name the names here. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I don't want you to put anybody in blast.
We all know is this guy David Krimus. I don't know if you heard of him.
No.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. Like he is so good, and he like now he doesn't even really train, but he would beat everybody with like collar and sleeve, crazy strength, and just like pull you into an omoplata at will. And he would do it on the other side too, and he was so good. He competed and just didn't do well, and like it's just like you just watch it and you're like, that's not him. Like he's like a shell of himself, and of course he could practice it, but it's like, do you really want it? And I don't know. People have there's a lot of factors. There's tons of factors, but it's hard to say. But we have tons of those guys, or maybe they just work a full-time job and they beat most guys.
Maybe, some people. But I was going to actually ask you what you think really separates people at that elite level, right? Because there's so many. Like I go to gyms everywhere. Everybody's got. Every room has at least 1 or 2 guys that you're like, holy shit, this guy's awesome. Yeah. So in your opinion, I feel like it is the mental game a lot of times. Yep. It's how much do you want it? How hard are you? Because we all even me, I've had moments where you like the idea of success, but then when you're in the round and your lungs are burning and you're fucking tired and literally your body is like, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
I feel like it's those moments where I would say to myself when I was training for Nogi Worlds, in those moments, I'd be like, well, this is what it is. Like, do you want to do it? Like, this is, if you want this is where it is right now.
Yes.
So do you feel like you see things that separate elite people from more, average or gym kind of warriors?
Yep. First of all, I'd agree with you 100% with the mental game. But another thing that comes down to it is like consistency.
Yes.
And it's not consistency like, oh, I've been training like every single day this week. It's like week after week, month after month, year after year.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
George will always tell me like, where are they now? Like these guys, like he just says that to me, and it's like we'll look back at training pictures from 2 years ago and we'll be like, holy shit.
Oh
like,
my God, remember that guy? Remember that dude? Yeah.
It's consistency, and like I think that's something that I have going for me is I've always showed up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, it's hard. It's very hard. Like year after year, it's such a hard thing to maintain. So, obviously a little bit of luck and things work out for you, but most of the time it's like just showing up for a long period of time. And I just always like that moment where George is like, where are they? Like we're still here and we're still doing our thing. So I think that's one of the most important things.
I mean, I've seen so many I have so many, like even me, if you saw me when I first started, I was not good, and it's like, I've seen so many people that I would have killed to have half their talent.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just, but I'm just stubborn and I'm Italian and I just keep going. And it's like, that's really the thing that's only gotten me forward is just this stupid kind of, well, I don't want to quit. Like I've had so many shit days on the mat where I go home and I'm driving home quietly in the car and I'm just like, I'm just like, what am I doing? But then it's the next day. It's like, I don't know. I still want to do it. So even if I suck today, I'm just going to go and I'm going to go and I'm going to go. So it's cool to hear you say that. But just before I move on, I only wanted to ask you about one other thing, but this whole dream big thing, would you have seen yourself in this position when you started? Like, did you see as an early on that you thought, oh, I'm going to be on the podium at Worlds or this or that, or was that a surprise to even you?
It's phases. Like obviously at white belt, I remember like having one of my first matches filmed, and I was like, oh, this is like cool. Like I like this. Because of karate wasn't that like I competed in karate, but it's not a big scene. So like I just thought I was going to continue like just being a martial artist in my everyday life. That's something I always felt like I was. Like I'm a martial artist and I just want to like explore this new art. But I think like really that blue belt turning point at Worlds was where I was like, I could see myself here. Yeah. And I belong here. And I think like from there, like, I've done so many tournaments now that it feels normal to like, to get those things. I'm just kind of chasing that little high of getting that medal.
It's like a drug addiction. You get that little bump of euphoria, but it's such a cool feeling. Yeah. Look, I don't want to keep you too much longer, but I was wondering about, unfortunately I've never been to Toronto BJJ, but talk to me a bit about the environment there and your relationship with Jorge Britto, and like, how do you guys keep producing so many elite competitors? What's in the water there at Toronto BJJ?
Yeah, I think George probably has a better answer for this than me, just like from what he actually knows, and he's done it. Like he's been here for, he's been at Toronto BJJ longer than me. But I just think like from what I've seen, we don't really cater to the competition team, which is kind of like backwards almost.
Right.
Like if just looking at it, like if you're not focusing on the competition team, then how do you get better competitors? But it's like we work on like building jiu-jitsu as a whole for everybody. And the younger guys, older guys, the people that want to do it kind of rise to the occasion. And George sets the example as well. Like he's still competing. He just had an MMA fight. Like
I know that guy's crazy. Like I'm always like, what is going on? Yeah.
He'll look at me one day and just be like, you know what? I'm doing Masters Worlds. And he'll be like, I'm just going to do it. And he'll just jump in. He jumped in Worlds like a couple years ago at adult too. So I think like him leading by example just inspires everyone and gets us fired up. Because if he's training for a tournament, the whole room, like average students, people who's recreational, they're gonna compete. Yeah. And everyone, like our whole room, the average student is just so good because of that. Like George sets the example. Everyone tries to maybe do 1 or 2 competitions a year, and the level of the room is just high. Yep. So even if you're not a competitor, quote unquote, like you are really, if you're at Toronto BJJ, you're a competitor. So I just think like George creating that environment of everyone should compete and try it. And then the competition guys kind of rise up and like, I want to do this. And then we have our own time at 10 a.m. or whatever, where we kill each other. And I think that has been like, for us, how we got like successful with that. It's not just like the head coach being like, oh, you guys are over here, the competition guys are going to work on the side. And it creates this weird dynamic. And I think we don't do that at all. And it works for us, I guess.
No, that's really interesting because I mean I don't know, from a distance I might have assumed it would have been the other way around. I don't know. I haven't heard.
Right.
I'm not saying I heard that or anything. I just
Right.
but it's cool. I mean, again, we talk about this idea of planting seeds. It's like you're building a foundation, right? If you focus on everybody having a good solid fundamental game plan and they build up, you're just gonna these competitors are gonna crop up and even and they're already gonna have the tools probably. It's probably more about changing the training a little bit and getting mentally tougher and ready for it, as opposed to like having to build them from the ground up, because you've been doing that from the start, right?
Yeah, 100%.
What is your relationship like with George? What's he like as a leader and as a mentor to you?
Mm-hmm. I think like obviously at first he would like the biggest advice he gave me was just to be more aggressive when I compete and stuff like that. But George has always been like, he's my role model in the sense that like he's done everything that I want to do. Yeah. He's kind of been there before. So like if it comes to like, oh, how do I go about getting ready for this tournament, or how do I, he's helped me with like how he trains, and I just sort of emulated that. And I always look to him for advice when it comes to like training, competing, or even like, he has a family and I want to have a family someday. So like, I just want to, I want to follow that path. How does he balance like his family and training and things like that? So, George has always been like a good mentor for us as a whole, just setting the example. Yeah. And Josh as well, like he always has like our best interest in mind, like the competitors and the students. So he's always like helped me get to tournaments. Like a lot of these tournaments, it would not be possible without, Josh in the gym helping us out. So, Josh, he always gives me advice on like how he's worked with and done like some of the highest level athletes. When Salo and Shanji were, when we were affiliated with them, like Josh was in their corner when they did the super fight or when they fought worlds. That's crazy. And so, Josh can speak from experience of like being that guy on the sidelines and how they did it. And he's helped me a lot with that too. So like huge shout out to George and Josh for like, making it possible and creating a good environment for all of us.
Well, having that, I mean, I think I always say there's like the trickle down effect, right? Like the gym takes on a lot of characteristics of whoever is the leader, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. But it's cool to have a guy like George that, you can talk a big game about competing and doing it the right way, but I think just the visual aspect of seeing your coach go out there, for better or for worse, like wins or losses, like I've always said, like I still really admire people, whether they're jiu-jitsu competitors or MMA fighters. Like to me, I just admire people that are willing to go out there and take the chance, because there are a lot of people that hide on the kind of like, do this, but then you don't see them doing it themselves. Right. And so there's a bit of an unspoken thing that happens there that I do think earns the respect of students, so 100%. He seems like a really great guy. Look, man, this has been awesome. I don't want to keep you any longer, but I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that I didn't sort of ask you about that you wanted to talk about, or is there anything about you that you want people to know?
Man, I don't know. I think you did a good job. I got through pretty much everything. We're good, man. I just want to again I just want to thank you, Paul, for having me on. Man, appreciate it. Yeah,
it's my pleasure, man. Like I said, you and I'm not just saying, like, you do make. I watched a video of you. I think it's against this Khalil Nascimento guy. Yeah. And there's like this 1 minute clip where I was saying in the video that I did about you, where it's like he's kind of playing reverse De La Riva. You just pass the leg drag, he turtles, and you just take his back, and it's like, and then you choke him out. And it's literally like a 1 minute clip of like you just have this like agility and this intelligence. You have like this ability to change gears. And it's like, and I know we all strive for that. It's just I don't think everybody gets there. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's really cool to see you compete. I really want to see you do well. I'm glad that you're kind of thriving in this situation. How can people find you if they want to follow Nathan online?
Yeah. On Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I don't really use, but it's all at Nathan Dos Santos. Okay. And it's pretty simple.
How do they find you on your video game stuff? Do you have like an account, like a Twitch account or anything like that, or no?
It's just I don't really stream, but it's mostly just Nate. Yep. And then 6. Okay. Nate 6. That's simple. But usually, if someone wants to hit me up to like train or whatever, especially you, if you ever want to come by Toronto BJJ, like you're totally.
I'd love to when life,
totally,
life returns back to normal. It would be awesome.
Right, just hit me up and I'll tell you what the classes are like. Okay. And you jump in one. Like anyone who wants from, obviously like around the GTA, like we're super open like that. We don't charge any drop-in fees. You can come in and train, and I think that's always cool because we invite, like, it's nice to have new training partners come in. We can experience that. But yeah, that's it.
Absolutely. All right, man. You're the best.
All right.
Really cool to meet you, dude. I'm a big fan. I hope things clear up for you guys. I hope Toronto BJJ stays healthy.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate you doing this. Hopefully we can do it again down the line when you're back in action and we can talk about some tournaments and whatnot. But until then, man, keep improving, keep gaming, and I'll talk to you when I see you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Nathan. Cheers, man.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.